Hello and welcome to another episode of Face to Face. My name is Godfred Akoto Boafo. My guest today is a land economist who somehow has found himself in the throes of managing the education of Ghana. He's also a member of parliament for Bossman in the Ashanti region. Yaw Osei Adutwum is our guest on Face to Face. Honorable Adutwum, welcome to the program.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. It's great to be here.
It's good to have you now. 3 or 4 years ago, nobody would have known who Yaw Osei Adutwum is. Now you are a household name in... Yes, you are a household name in Ghana.
I didn't know that.
For good or bad reasons, we'll find out later. But I'm interested in this, though. How does a land economist become a specialist in education planning and management?
Good. Land economy, of course, was my first love professionally. I went to Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, did land economy, did my national service at Land Valuation Board, then found my way in America, where I really went to my true love. Education has been something that was so close to my heart. I remember doing my sixth form national service and teaching. I just loved it.
What were the subjects you were interested in?
I taught business at Jache Pramso Senior High School, which happens to this is form at Kumasi High. Then went back to Japas and did my 1 year national service there, taught, and I loved it. So when I found myself in America, you know, as an immigrant, wherever job comes your way, you jump. So I was fortunate to have had a job as a substitute teacher, which means that when a teacher is not in school, they call you on the phone at 5 a.m. and say, can you go to this school and teach the class because the teacher is not going to school. So I did that for 1.5 years and fortunately landed a job as a mathematics teacher. But before I could switch from land economy to mathematics teaching, I had to take some courses at University of California in Los Angeles, where I took several courses in mathematics. And then the state gave me the license to then teach mathematics in the California school system.
Oh, okay. I also realized you were teaching technology as well.
Yes. Those were the days of the ICT boom in Silicon Valley, where in America everybody was doing something about ICT, whether they went to school for it or did not go to school for it. People were building websites. Those were days where small ideas could make you a millionaire. So I went to the school district and said, I want to teach ICT. So I went for the certification, I got a certification, and then I started teaching ICT, web page design with Dreamweaver. And
so you can do all these things?
Of course. I built websites, and it's also exciting. So after teaching mathematics for 5 years, I went into ICT and taught ICT in the high school. Kids were fascinated by ICT at the time. You know, they create a website with HTML, and then we do the JavaScript, and they begin to see how things are changing to their page, and you can see the excitement. When I was teaching ICT, students would come to me and say, sir, what are we learning tomorrow? Because that excitement was there. We do the computer programming. So I did mathematics for 5 years, ICT for 5 years, and kind of exciting, kind of adventure.
So, Doc, you describe a very exciting educational system. What made the American system so good?
You see, to begin with, one thing I love about America is that they don't hold themselves to ransom. They don't hold themselves to rules. If they believe that their system can be changed through innovation, they don't bind themselves and tell you that this is how it has always been done. So when Americans saw that their public schools were not performing, when you look at reports that they did about a nation at risk, where they lamented that if they don't do anything, their high schools will not be able to really prepare students for the world of work and college. Then, since Reagan time, when the report came up, various succeeding governments began to look, okay, what do we need to do? And one of the suggestions that came about was to develop what they call charter schools. And these were schools that were going to be built by individuals with innovative ideas, but fully paid for by the government. So I happen to be one of the people who felt after teaching for 10 years that, you see, what I'm able to do, I can replicate it on a larger scale. What I was able to do was to teach ICT, for example, and after teaching mathematics for 5 years, begin to look at how we can change the way our children do web page design, computer programming. And I taught it after getting certification. Nobody held me back and said, oh, you're a mathematics teacher, therefore you can. I just had to get additional certification. I was able to teach that. So I began to look at, okay, how do I replicate these ideas on a much larger scale? So I applied for a grant, $450,000. Fortunately, I was given the money. $50,000 was given to me to begin the planning process. I remember picking up that check and put it in the passenger seat of my car and thinking that the check will fly away because I've never held that amount of money before. So a check, $50,000, began the process, and then the $400,000 was given to me. I rented space in a church with classrooms. I began the school, opened the school with 100 students. Yes, very exciting day. I will never forget that day. Parents were excited. They walked to me and said, "We believe in you." And I said, "Why do you believe in me?" And they said, "You are an African. Africans are serious about education. Africans have a very strict culture, and Africans respect children. And we want your children to be in your school."
Okay, so that is how the new design charter schools came about.
Yeah.
And what were the outcomes of these schools that you ran?
See, the thing is this. I started a school. The government gave me the flexibility to design the curriculum. Yeah, and to set my own accountability requirements. So, unlike here, where everybody has to do the same thing, in the American education system, various schools and school districts can do something innovative and different. So in my school, every child, and the school ran from, if you were to bring it to Ghana, we would say primary 6, all the way to SHS 3. Now within those contests, what I had to do was design the curriculum. So I built it from scratch together with a team and required every child who came to the school to do ICT every year so they graduate. We also required every child who came to that school from high school on. High school was 4 years there. From high school on, everybody had to take a class in engineering. Because the idea was to open the floodgates of the opportunity that engineering brings to those children. Because if you look at the various fields of engineering and various divisions of engineering, there are so many opportunities. So I felt strongly that my children should be exposed to engineering. So starting from year 1 of high school to year 4, students would take a class in engineering to expose them to those opportunities. So I was able to create an innovative curriculum that allowed my students to qualify to apply to almost every university in the US, unlike the public schools where a number of students couldn't have gone to Harvard or Yale. I created a different curriculum. I require students to come to school on Saturdays so that they can catch up if they come and they don't have the requisite skills. So even in America, children were coming to school on Saturdays and they joyfully came because I painted a picture for them, a picture where if they were to follow my curriculum and follow the various instructional strategies and support the teachers as parents, their children will get to a university that is really up there. And that was my promise to them. My promise was fulfilled when students began to get accepted to top universities across the country. And my promise was fulfilled when students who did very well were celebrated. Every Friday, there was a student celebration event. Student of the week, every Friday, from 3 o'clock to 3:45, students went into the auditoriums in the various schools that we operated and were recognized per grade level, primary 6, junior high school 1, all the way to high school. They were recognized for excellence, for great things that they were accomplishing. Because you see, children don't want to wait for the end of the year for you to talk about speech and prize giving day. No. They want it now, instant satisfaction. Tell me, have I done well? Am I somebody who is doing well? And those practices then really began to change the culture in our schools, that if you walk into the school, the discipline is top-notch. People wonder, how did you create this? We created it by validating the students. I did home visits, went to families' homes, and the parents become so excited because they've seen the CEO, because I have headmasters or principals that were running the school. And I was the CEO of the network of schools, so about 200 workers, teachers and staff and headmasters who were running the school. And it's a very exciting life to have somebody like me who grew up very poor, getting to America, working with Americans, building schools there. Very exciting life.
It definitely sounds exciting. And I'll come back to a point you made later on in the conversation about the school district and how it controls, and our own district assemblies, and how they are also supposed to have some kind of impact in how schools are managed. But that is for later on in the conversation. But you were doing things, building schools, you were excited, you were making an impact in lives of young men. Why did you decide to become a politician?
You see, the point is this. In my opinion, politics should be used for the good of the people. I did not come into politics because I wanted to be a politician and go about, I'm a minister. No. No. What excites me is when we're able to make an impact in the lives of children. I felt that coming back to Ghana, I'll be able to make an impact on the lives of millions of people. In America, I was making an impact on the life of thousands of people, which was still very much appreciated and recognized in South Los Angeles. When Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, I was campaigning and came there, visited one of my schools, and a Ghanaian community in the Western U.S. met him at the school, did a reception for him, and he asked me, would you consider coming back to Ghana to help me change the education system? I said, yes, I will consider, because he chose his West Cape. He said, would you consider? He didn't say just come, right? So I said, I will consider. And I truly considered it. In fact, at the time, my goal was to run for U.S. Congress, because I thought I could win. Yeah, of course, because I was a household name there, Southern California. They call me Dr. Yaw. I've taught students and their parents, and some of them were now having children. So I was well known, and I thought I could easily run for Congress and win in Southern California. I wanted to make history. But after Nana requested that if I would consider coming back, I met with a mentor of mine, former congressman, Dr. Mervyn Dimely, who has passed on. And I asked him, do I go to Ghana or do I stay here and run for Congress? And he said, yeah, I'll tell you one thing. America can do without you, but maybe your country cannot do without you. So I'll advise you to go back home. I didn't ask him any question. We were having lunch at a restaurant, and he spoke to my heart. I was decided that I will come, but because maybe my country may not be able to do without me. And I came based on that premise. And I went to contest for Parliament, MP Bosomtwe. And then I'll tell you this, I wanted politics to give me a platform to change the education system. Not just of Ghana, but of Africa. I just came back from Kenya, had a wonderful time there. Africa presents the most exciting opportunity for education transformation anywhere in the world. When I addressed the UK Fiat, a big event, thousands of people, a few weeks back, I told them that I will be able to transform the African education system faster than I would in America. Because here we have children who are so well behaved, sitting in classrooms. Yesterday I was at Azakaya in Accra, Okake North. The MP took me to the school. Kids are so well behaved, so ready. I talked to the GHS3, our students, 2 of them were crying because I gave them hope. I told them that you can be the best in the world. Don't let anybody put you down because you are poor. This girl stood up and cried and said, you've given me hope. This is Accra. Those are things that I love, that can make an impact on these children who are so ready that if we the adults will do the right things, if we the adults will set up the right systems, these children can be the best in the world, based on my experience, because they are so well behaved. I spent 50% of my time or more in the classroom in America when I was teaching, trying to get the kids' attention. Walk into a Ghanaian classroom and I have 100% undivided attention, but if only I can make the learning exciting, if only his voice will be recognized, if only I will tell him that you are a powerful individual whose future is in your hands and you can turn your own future around, that's of your family around, get them excited. If only I can do that, I can get Ghanaian children to be the best in the world.
Interesting that you've moved us into that conversation, because I was going to ask you, in your professional estimation then, sitting in America as an educationist with all that you had been able to do, when you looked at the Ghanaian educational system, what was your prognosis of our educational system?
The thing is this, we have the greatest opportunity for socioeconomic transformation through education than any other country.
How so?
You see, that's what I told you. I have students who are willing to learn.
We don't have infrastructure. We don't
Let me
have
tell you.
teachers.
Let me tell you. One thing I've come to realize, and I tell people all the time, what I got from America was not the money. I was paid very well, and you'll be surprised why I left that money to come here. But what I got from America is that sense of can do, that everything is possible. So I see opportunity before the challenge. I see the low-hanging fruits. I see where I can institute counseling programs and schools can do career fair and career days or even career weeks and get the children exposed to certain careers and get them begin to think about how do I become an engineer, how do I become a doctor, how do I become a teacher, and get them talking and getting excited about their future. As the kid, the two girls who cried yesterday in their class on ours, Zakia and Okak Quinov, begin to get them to understand that God has made you a special individual whose destiny is in your hands, and I'm here to help you. When I look at those opportunities, it pales in comparison to any challenge that we think we have, because we really have to wake those children up. And when that excitement is created, when teachers begin to recognize that in spite of the challenges, I as the teacher is the most important person in this room and the most important person in this education system, and that in spite of these challenges, I can turn the fortunes of these children around. When you begin to work at that, then the facility challenge becomes something that you even tackle with enthusiasm. So, if you're enthusiastic, let me tell you what the president has done, for example. With Free Senior High School, when we came to government, it was estimated by the previous government that it was going to take 20 years for us to provide all the facilities so that Free Senior High School will become a reality in Ghana. And I commend the NDC for embarking on an infrastructure development through the e-blocks. It was their attempt at looking at how do we provide infrastructure so that we can truly implement Free Senior High School. But Brookings Institution recently did a study, and the study said it was going to take, ours was 20 years, Free Senior High School. They are saying it's going to take 126 years for developing countries to transform the education system to catch up with the rest of the world, the developed nations, 126 years. But they also issued a caveat and said the nations that are going to catch up are the ones who leapfrog. And then they talk about leapfrogging inequality. What that means is that you look at your situation. I'm coming back to the question that you asked me. You look at your situation and say to yourself, how do I, in spite of these challenges, do better in education and catch up with the rest of the world? So you have to look at your financing of infrastructure. The president looked at that situation and recognized that something different had to be done. So instead of building schools the way we've done it, the way like my father built his first house, started it when I was in class 1, finished it when I went to the university and graduated and went to America to bring him more money to build it. It's talking about 20 years, right? You can't build schools that way. You have to look at how do developed nations build schools. So Nana Addo Akufo-Addo offered a different solution. The solution was, why don't we look at the money that will come to get funded? 10 years, how much are we getting? Just take 40% of that money that you are projecting to get in 10 years. Securitize it, borrow against it, build all the schools today, and pay down the debts as the money comes. That is how schools are built in America. Cities don't wait till every year they get some tax revenue and they add on it and add on it and add on it. So if you want to change the way things work, if you catch the sense of urgency, you begin to look at what are the innovative ways that I can use. As I speak with you, buildings are springing up across the length and breadth of the country in all...
Really?
Yes. I would love for you to take a look at all the...
Give me some names and locations.
I'll get them. I've been there. This is not Blue Book kind of thing. I've been there. I've seen them. Let me tell you. Go to Kumasi High School right now as far as Fijai Senior High School, or Sage Senior High School, or Werimai Senior High School. Go to all these schools and buildings are almost done, or it's done, completed.
What kind of
dormitories
or classrooms?
Every one of them that I can think of. Go to my school, Jacho Primary Senior High, dormitory block done. Go to T.I. Hamedia Formana, building done. The dormitory block is almost done. 6 classroom block done. Through the Get Fund securitization, that gave us $500 million. Something that we couldn't have borrowed from the World Bank. So when a sense of urgency is created and the government is determined to turn around the socioeconomic fortunes of its people, then ideas come and you solve problems that you would normally have been able to solve. And that is what I brought from America. The American way of thinking is exactly what the president is doing, that everything is possible. If we put our mind to something, it can be done.
There are those who are saying that, yeah, you've created assets, but basically what we run is an exam factory. There's no learning taking place. You are just trying to push through the numbers that you can go to the UN and say, well, 1.2 million, or you can go and speak to a large crowd in the UK or Kenya and say, well, the kids are going through school. But you are simply pushing them through an examination factory where, yes, you want teachers to be excited, but how can teachers be excited when they are teaching 90 students in a classroom? How do they grade?
That is what Double Track did. Reduce class. I go to Accra girls and ask them what Double Track has done for them.
Double Track for a lot of parents is confusing, Dr. Bichu.
Yeah, and that's why you are here to hear it, so that they can hear. Yeah, go to Accra girls. They used to have 70 students in the class. Now you go there, it's about 40 because of Double Track. So, you see, Double Track is a strategy to reduce class sizes because all of them are not there at the same time.
But the outcomes, doctor, is that not what we are looking for?
No, don't look at outcomes. Let me tell you, there are 3 things that you do in education reform: access, quality, and relevance. Okay. If you were to tell me that once upon a time in this country, schools were not examination factories and that they were not memorizing from WAEC and it just happened because of Double Track, then I agree with you. Let me tell you, this is the first time we are confronting that challenge of factory for memorization. Chew, pour, pass, and forget has been with us, right? This is the first time we are trying to change it. So, yes, that problem is there. And I'll be the first to concede. Having run schools in the US where you involve the students in the learning process, they sit as a group, you do collaborative learning. The focus is not about, tell me what I told you. The focus is about, are we creating? There's something called the Bloom's taxonomy. Bloom's taxonomy, the lowest level of learning that you can do in a school is called comprehension level. Okay. That is what we are doing for the most part in Ghana. We've been doing it for years. And this is the first time we are saying we shouldn't continue that. Rote memorization has been the norm and is the worst thing we can do to our children.
Have the teachers been told this?
Of course. I'll tell you. We have teachers that we've trained at this place from SIP, Secondary Education Improvement Project. And let me tell you one thing. One thing is that if you decide that everything that the government is doing is not what it should do, without probing further, you're going to come up with serious conclusions and something that will get your listeners all excited about the bad things that are going on, right? So opportunities like this is good for me. Opportunities where we begin to look at the essential requirements for education reform: access, quality, relevance. Let me talk about...
Hold on for me, Dr. Yaw Adutwum. Before I let you break it down, I need to take a quick commercial break and pay some bills. I hope you're enjoying this conversation with the Deputy Minister of Education. He is a professional educationist. We'll be back after this break. Welcome back to Face with Dr. Yaw Osei Adutwum, Deputy Minister of Education and also Member of Parliament for Bosomchin. Now, Doc, you were saying that you've broken this into 3 parts. Explain.
In education reform, there are 3 things that you have to take a look at. You have to look at access, you have to also look at the quality, and you have to look at relevance of the education to the socioeconomic needs of your country. Once you embark on a reform and you just combine all the 3, then you're on the right track. But if you decide that I'm just going to focus on access, I'm going to open the floodgates of education to every child, as you rightly alluded to, but I don't care about quality, right? Then you're going to have a problem. Okay? That is why when Free Senior High School was brought by the president, he also mandated that we look at all these aspects of our education system. So that is why Free Senior High School also brought about payment of intervention grants to high schools.
What does that do?
What it does is this. Students come to you, they come to you from diverse backgrounds, from different schools. They may not be doing well in various subject areas, but they are there. When they come to you, what you need to do is something in America called the response to intervention, which is you look at where they are and then begin to look at what do I do to help bring them up to a point where they can actually participate in the instructional program. So scaffolding, for example, you look at a student, you're going to work on a certain concept in mathematics, sets or something to that effect, and then you begin to see that the student doesn't know fractions. How do you make sure that you provide the fractions intervention so that they can do that aspect of mathematics? So that is the scaffolding concept. Take the kid from where they are and let them move up. But we cannot just say that without providing the schools resources. And that is why we provided intervention grants to the schools, that they can use that to really support the children who are not doing well to do well. And those who are doing well also provide an accelerated learning environment for them. And those in Form 3 provide mandatory and free vacation classes in their final year just before the exams, so that they can have the opportunity to advance their knowledge and do well on the WASI and all those things. But I want to say something about the type of education we have in this country. I think I've said something about that. We have to begin to really look at how we get the students not to memorize, right? We have to, as a nation, begin to look at the role of WAEC, for example, in the whole education discussion.
Why?
Let me tell you, because in education we talk about CIA, curriculum, instruction, and assessment, right? Invariably, we want to do this linearly and say that let me focus on curriculum. Then I'll train the teachers as to how to deliver the curriculum. And after that, we will assess to see if the children are doing well. You can plan a formative assessment as part of your instructional program. Formative assessment is the quizzes that the teachers give, the end of term exam that the teachers give. Those are formative, right? Mm-hmm. But your major assessment in this part of the world is administered by WAEC. Mm-hmm. People are going to teach to the test. Okay. If I'm a private school operator or proprietor, I want my children to pass BEC. Mm-hmm. I want my children to pass the WASI. That is how I'm going to get more parents coming to me. Yeah. So if you talk about changing the curriculum, right? But BEC is not changed to reflect new ways of teaching and learning that you envisage in the curriculum. You are not going to get to that intended destination because when we changed curriculum in the US, when we brought in Common Core, which was more aligned with the curriculum of all this Singapore and other countries. When Americans did that, when you come to the state of California, immediately we also changed the assessment. So a school that wants to do well on the test, right, will then go back and say, let me take a look at the curriculum. Because if they don't take a look at the curriculum and the instructional approach is prescribed, they will not do well on the exams. And the exams does not lend itself to rote memorization. It does not lend itself to memorization of facts and ideas and tell me, instead of saying, tell me the effects of pollution, the causes of pollution, the new curriculum is saying, create a city without pollution. Okay. So the children cannot do it on their own. They are working with their friends and their groups. Activities are being done. When it gets to the exams, the teacher is not going to do an exam that is only bordered on facts, small based on facts. The rest will be based on activities. And they will even have something called the performance task, which you do before the exam. The group will come together and do a group activity, right? The next day, the exams are going to be held and they will be asked questions about the activity that they did, right? So all that I'm saying is that you have to really look at creating a comprehensive system of education. And that is what Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo is about. That let us create a system of education that do not only look at access and leave it there, but also take a look at quality. And by the way, we are not going to forget about assessment. We are not going to forget about how students are going to be tested, right? And then we are not going to also forget about the relevance of the education system to the needs of the country.
I have two questions. You've hit on one for me. You spoke about, let's look at WAEC. There are those experts yourself in the education space who have also said the BEC you just alluded to, perhaps we should remove it because it limits the access you are talking about. And just have kids move from JSS straight through to the secondary level. What are your thoughts on that?
The thing is this. If you are eliminating BEC, which I don't have any problem with, but you still have to have some checkpoint exams, right? Just for placement purposes. We never had, every student was not required to do middle school living certificate. We were not old enough to know. But there was something called the middle school living certificate exams. If you pass that exam, that is what you can take to the police and the civil service to work. But if you wanted to go to senior high school, you didn't have to even finish the middle school to take the middle school living certificate exam. You took the common entrance, which had an aptitude component comprising of verbal and quantitative, almost like an intelligence test, to test how ready you are for high school work. And then you did English and mathematics. So you do all this verbal, quantitative, aptitude, English, mathematics, and then that is what took you to senior high school. And in fact, you could go to senior high school from primary 6. Those who were coming from the advantaged backgrounds did not go to middle school. A number of them skipped middle school altogether. Went straight from what I think they call stage 6. Those were the people who could afford, and went straight to the high school, and they did very well. And those of us who came from backgrounds where we couldn't go to private school at the time went to the middle school. I skipped the last year of middle school. A number of people did the whole middle school. So we have that bifurcation where you do middle to get your certificate to work or to go and look for work with it, or you can skip middle to go to senior high school. At the end of the middle, you can also take the common entrance and go to senior high school. And in a number of jurisdictions, that division is still there. So when you talk about getting rid of BEC, you still may have a placement exam like the common entrance. You know, because if you don't do those things, and if you even don't have that, you need to have a checkpoint exam that enables you to know that the schools are implementing the curricula. Because otherwise,
you will still be run from a central education examination authority.
Yeah, because that is how you assure yourself. If you look at the Cambridge curriculum, there's a checkpoint, right? Checkpoint at the end of I think 6 years or so enables the system, the government, to know that what is supposed to be mastered by the student have been mastered, and that you cannot just depend upon wherever the school will tell you. So there is a need for some kind of checkpoint exams, even if it's mandatory that everybody should go to secondary school. The government, and that is why with the new curricula that we're implementing, we are also bringing assessment every other year from a centralized location, right? So if you look at primary 2, we'll do an annual assessment. In those annual assessments, we are trying to look at the essential features of the curriculum and then say, are we mastering those elements? How are we getting our students to think creatively? That will be mastered, incorporated into the exams. So we are not going to have tuple pass and the memorization, but we are talking about what are the set of skills that our students need to have so that when they go to the world of work, they will be the people who will bring about new ideas that will change our country. Let me give you an example. PISA, Program for International Student Assessment, which is administered around the world. It's an abstract kind of test. Ghana used to do it, and I think we checked out maybe 2014 thereabout when we were the last but one in the world. But we are now going back in 2021. And the reason is this. Those countries that participate in PISA, research has shown that the children who take the exams, if they are proficient, that is, if they get a score of 420 on average for the whole country, those children who pass the exams, in their lifetime, the GDP of their country will grow by 33 times. 33 times. The research has shown that in countries like now, Vietnam is doing so well. And people know that with the Vietnam doing so well, their country is going to change because the exams lend itself to critical thinking. So you're going to have a critical mass of your nation thinking critically. They go to a workplace, and what they do is to add value to what their boss tells them. It's not for them to follow wherever the boss said. They will follow it and add value to it. So you have a group of 20 people that will come to you for a job. You plan to hire 5 of them, but their quality is such that you can't resist hiring 10 of them. That is when you begin to see transformation in your country. And that is why it's important that we don't do the factory type that you are talking about.
Yes, which is why I'm interested in.
We have to change the curriculum. We have to use what is called the new Bloom's taxonomy as the way of measuring the quality of the teaching and learning in our classrooms. In the education world, we also have what we call the Webb's Depth of Knowledge, or DOKs. If you are teaching now and I walk into your class, I can use that blueprint called the Webb's Depth of Knowledge to see how you are impacting knowledge to the children and be able to assess if you are challenging the children to think critically or you are passing on superficial content that lends itself to rote memorization. Those are the blueprints that is incorporated into the curriculum that we are working on to make sure that you can truly bring about the transformation that we need. But I agree with you. If we don't do that well, if we really do not get our children to come to a point where they are thinking critically and can take the PISA and compete with other countries around the world, and we just default to the easy pathway of rote memorization, I'm the teacher, I know it all, I'm telling you what to say it back to me, and you are the best student in my class. If that is the norm, we are wasting everybody's time, and the transformation that we seek to have in the knowledge economy will elude us forever.
Well, you've taken the wind out of my sail on the curriculum question, because I was going to ask, we see an interdisciplinary curriculum basically in a lot of the developed countries. That is what seems to be in vogue. You seem to have described a situation where we seem to be heading towards that, but an easy solution for that normally is to reduce the number of courses, which we have done. Mm-hmm. But does that deal with the overlaps of courses? Because we do know some of the courses do overlap.
You see, we call it thematic instruction. I used to do that in my schools in the US. And I remember what one kid said one day when my school began implementing thematic instruction, where they just said, okay, the whole theme is about environment, for example, for a semester, and everybody's going to work on the environment. But we are approaching it from different subject background and perspective. So if you were doing weathering, for example, or in geography, or in the what they call F science, you are talking about the environment, you are talking about erosion and all those things. So you are doing F science or geography, but you are linking it up with the environment, right? Students are writing essays about pollution and all those things. So if they are dealing with expository composition or argumentative essay, you are using environment in debating it, right? So you look at other courses in mathematics, your examples are now hovering around or focusing on the environment and degradation and improvement that will come and all those things. So when you begin to look at themes and thematic instruction, what it enables you to do is that the children become more focused and they get more in-depth understanding in the concept. It becomes more relevant to them. I remember what one student said. He said, now I can write an essay and get credit for 3 subjects, right? Because I studied it in environmental class or geography class, and I'm writing about it in my English class. And then my geography teacher is also teaching me about erosion and weathering. So I'm getting all these ideas. I'm getting a serious in-depth understanding. And he said, why did you guys sit here all this time and didn't teach us this way? So the issue is that integrated kind of learning and teaching lends itself to deeper understanding by students. But my brother, I'll not kid you. You cannot do this without giving teachers time to plan instruction.
Which is what I was coming to, supervision of teachers and instruction. I know that you are now doing the licensure exams. All these bright ideas that you're talking about that you want to do, of course, cannot succeed if teachers don't have buy-in. What kind of buy-in are you getting from teachers?
They've done the training, for example, the lower levels of the curriculum. But also, it's not really difficult to get teachers buy-in, but you need to provide them time. Let me give you one example. In the US, of course, in my practice, in my schools, teachers have 10 days set aside in the year where students don't come to school.
Okay.
And they meet to look at how do we improve our skills. And people go there to teach them if they don't have somebody internally who can do the professional development. right? Now GES is doing something. Every quarter, they are going to get teachers to be by themselves at the basic level to look at how they can improve themselves, uninhibited by students, so students won't be at school. So these are some of the things. So in terms of buying, what I believe is this. Teachers are the most dedicated professionals you can find anywhere in the world. But you cannot get their buy-in if you don't provide them the time.
Are you?
Of course. That is what I'm saying. Now, once a quarter, students will not go to school. And
are you explaining this properly to parents as well? Because you know how things work in this system.
And they would. You see, but the bottom line is this. I'm happy that GS is now providing time for teachers, right, to be by themselves and focus on how do they improve themselves. So that is how you get a buy-in. If I'm a teacher, I want to improve there's no teacher who doesn't want to improve their skills. But if it's to improve my skills, I have to pay to have training to become better. It's unacceptable. Okay. My employer should give me time within my contract to acquire more knowledge. And if you don't give me that, how do you get a buy-in from me? So all that I'm saying is, yes, I think we'll get buy-in from teachers for most of the innovations we want to bring about, but we also have to look at how do we make sure that it's not at his expense.
I have to ask this. CSC. What exactly is the controversy about? The comprehensive sexual education issue that has come.
My minister has talked about it. Yesterday he did a press conference, so I don't have anything to add other than what I want to tell you.
Tell me.
My president, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, is interested in comprehensive system of education and not comprehensive sexual education. His focus is very clear. How can you find me children who otherwise will not have gone to school in the various nooks and crannies of the country so that they can go through secondary education and have their destinies changed? That is the mandate that he has given to us, and that is what we are focused on. It's a comprehensive system of education that will transform this nation once and for all.
Thank you very much for that response. There are those who have said this, and this brings me to the question I alluded to in the first part of the interview with regards to we have local assemblies, you have school districts.
School district.
I've read reports and suggestions from other experts who say we don't need the GES. It's a convoluted structure that hinders progress. The law, the Local Government Act, mandates district assemblies to manage schools. So why don't we remove the system that is the GES, allow local assemblies to manage schools in conjunction with your ministry, and things will move on? What are your thoughts on this?
I think it's not that simple. It's not that simple. In other jurisdictions that we want to follow, right?
But this is in our law.
No, let me tell you. I mean, law is the law. Now they are doing the bill to actually bring about the decentralization. Yes. So the bill is there now. And let me tell you, the Constitution of the Republic, and it did not say that you should devolve to this last time. It just said education should be decentralized, right? Yes. Let me show you how other jurisdictions have done the same thing. In other jurisdictions, our schools are not run by the local government. It's not run by district assemblies. Schools are run by their own devolved entities. So, for example, Ashanti region may have about 10 school districts. The people who who run the district are elected by the people directly, independent of any district assembly. And they go there and their sole mandate is to change the education system for their area, right? So when you go there, you serve on the school district. The district then appoint a CEO who runs the district. And they are held accountable by the people, independent of any other governmental intervention, whether it's a district assembly or region or national for that matter. Because the people the board members have direct mandates from the people to tell them that this is how you run our schools on our behalf, and by the way, if you don't do a fantastic job, we'll remove you. So it's not going to be a DCE saying that as part of my job, I have 10% of my time dedicated to schools, and if I have time, I will visit schools. If I don't have time, by the way, I may not care about education. So let me tell you, there are times when we hear this innovative concept about decentralization, and we don't ask ourselves, what are we decentralizing? So you are taking away Ghana Education Service because of challenges, but does that tell you that the district will automatically turn around the fortunes of our education system? These are my personal opinions, not that of the ministry.
Not
that of the
you
ministry.
as a specialist.
Yes, not that of the ministry. Because just replacing one government bureaucracy with another does not automatically solve your problems.
Face to Face will take a quick break. When we return, we'll continue our conversation with the Deputy Education Minister, Dr. Yaw Osei Adutwum. Welcome back to Face with Dr. Yaw Osei Adutwum. Doc, we're in the final phase of the interview, so I'll talk a bit of politics, but I have one question. Give me a quick response on this. What are your thoughts on the conversation on language of instructions, where some have suggested that maybe it's not just English that we need? It might be time to pick and choose one or two local languages in addition to English in the classrooms to facilitate learning.
You see, the thing is this: as an educationist, I look at all these things through the prism of what works and what is innovative, right? Using local language in itself does not change your education system. We have to go back to the drawing table and begin to understand how is English taught to those whose native language is not English. We haven't done that in this country. We are teaching English to our students as if they come from homes where English is the first language. We are not looking at what Steve Krashner talks about language acquisition and language learning. Language acquisition is when students are allowed to immerse themselves in the language in an environment where there's no anxiety. In an environment where children are looking at how do I say this, pronounce this, and how do I write it properly, you're not going to get them to acquire the language. You have to create an environment where children feel like they do at home. At home, when they are learning their Gan, their Chi, the parent doesn't whip them if they don't do well. With time, they begin to say daddy, mommy, and by the time you know they have acquired the language, without you teaching them the grammar of the language, the verb, and the noun, they've acquired it, right? Now, when it comes to our classrooms, we need to create an environment where we learn about what Steve Krashner talks about language acquisition, a place where no anxiety, children acquire the language before they learn the language. So if you want to make sure that English is perfected and they will be able to actually be used in the teaching and learning in the classroom, allow them to acquire the language without anxiety, take away the cane and the stress in the classroom, let them speak freely, actually absorbing the words. It's almost like an immersion, right? Then you jump into the next phase of language acquisition. That is where you say verb and noun and pronoun and all those kind of things. So what that I'm saying is this. Within the short period of time I can use to explain this, we have to distinguish between language acquisition and language learning and teach this well, starting from colleges of education. So teachers come out and they fully are abreast with the modern pedagogical strategies for language acquisition and language learning. And once you do that, then you are going to be in an environment where our students will be able to use English very well and then learn every content that they want to learn. But I would advise that you can use the local language as a scaffolding strategy so that the student will be able to understand that, oh, this is what you are talking about. You have a challenge when you talk about local language use in the classroom. You go to our urban areas, it's not a monolingual environment. You have about 20 languages spoken by the student. Whose language do you use and whose language do you exclude? In a diverse country like ours, we have to go back to the drawing table and understand that certain things cannot be done. And what needs to be done is how we teach our teachers how best they can help the students acquire and learn the English language to then begin to use this effectively as a language of instruction and not to jump on the bandwagon of other countries that say we want to go back to our native tongue. Go to your native tongue. But when they go to the university, is Legon going to use Twi, Ga? What language is Legon going to use in teaching our children? It's English. We better do it well. And if we don't know, we should ask people to show us how you can teach English to those who are second language speakers. So we have to begin to understand limited English proficiency issues, fluent FEP students. If I go to Wesley Girls now, about 70% will be fluent in English because their parents spoke to them in English at home. 30% may be limited English proficient. I need to know strategies that is used in helping those students acquire English language in order for them to get the fluency they desire to compete with the 70% who are already fluent. Okay. And these are strategies that we need to implement in our schools.
Right. So let's talk a bit about Bosomtwe. What are the people of Bosomtwe saying about the work you've been doing?
Bottom line is this. I think that they may be saying some good things about me, and especially about the president, because Bosomtwe have seen a lot of improvement during the last 2.5 years of the presidency of Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. I have a very good team on the grounds. My executive of the New Patriotic Party at the district level have worked with me closely. The chairman has led the charge in terms of ensuring that we can really bring about transformation in the district. Oh yes, of course. And District Chief Executive Lawyer Sumin has been one person that has been fun to work with the last close to 3 years. And if you come to Bosomtwe, a exciting part is the fact that the main road leading from Kumasi to the lake is under construction. We're going to get a dual carriage road. Great opportunity that we've never seen before. We are grateful to the president, grateful to the roads minister, and grateful to the regional minister for their leadership and ensuring that we can get this for our people. So that one achievement is, in my opinion, something that people are very grateful for. Because we've gone through this for a long time, bad roads, and we have the only natural lake in West Africa. And the road is so bad that people are not coming there. This is going to change everything for us. But beyond roads, we also have schools, various school buildings under construction. One thing that will excite me and think will be a legacy for me when I'm no longer in office is the construction of the Bosomtwe STEM Academy. You know, science, technology, and engineering and mathematics is what is the norm around the world. Every education system is looking at how do we do STEM. If you are not doing science, you are not doing technology, you are not doing engineering and mathematics from KG all the way up to the university, you are not transforming your education system. So when you come to Bosomtwe, I've started a project called the Bosomtwe STEM Academy. We have students now in the KG level, primary 1 and 2. In January, we are going to add more classes all the way to junior high school 1. And if you go there right now and see the buildings that are there, we took over a 10-acre land. We are putting up a library block, 2 classrooms, beautiful. I'm using my common fund to do an assembly hall. This is a basic school. They are getting an assembly hall. I'm using my common fund to do the landscaping and other things. And my goal is to make sure that you walk into that school and if they blindfold you and drop you there, you think you are in America. Because I think the idea that children are the future leaders of this country should not be a cliche. We should invest to show them that truly you are the future leaders of this nation. And I'm doing that in Bosomtwe. I want the children to understand that since my focus and my pledge to the people is to get within the next 10 years or under 100 engineers, 100 medical doctors to hail from Bosomtwe, I have to set up the STEM Academy to get to that intended destination. And if we are going to transform our education system, it's not going to be about looking at just one source of funding from the government. I'm leveraging the 1 million per constituency in building brand new, beautiful KGs in my constituency. You go to Nkwanta, you go to Apinkra. These KG buildings, so beautiful, were not built by Ministry of Education. They were built through the Special Initiatives Ministry, through Honorable Howard Kumsons and the Medal Belts. And beautiful, nice, right? I could have used it for something, but I said, no, build me schools. And they are now. You are going to open it within a week or so. And you're going to see a beautiful KG. Now, I'm using my common fund to also build some of the KGs so that we can have kindergarten everywhere in the constituency. Okay. I'm using my common fund to support other initiatives. And I tell people I end up sometimes using my personal money or money from friends because I just did a fundraiser and I've raised money to support the Bosomtwe STEM Academy from my friends, because they feel strongly that education should be the difference maker. And for poor children growing up in underserved communities, if you do not provide the science laboratories for them at an early age, and the first time they see a science lab is at the high school, they are not going to be medical doctors, they are not going to be engineers. So if you want them to compete with other folks from other parts of town, then it's incumbent upon you to really create an environment for them that is even better than those who come from affluent communities. So I want to be the difference maker. I want to use the political platform as a means of bringing about the transformation of my district, as using education in a knowledge economy as what transforms communities. And that is what I'm focused on. I want Bosomtwe people to know that everything about them is dear to my heart. Whenever I travel and I pass through the airport and go through the diplomatic routes, I always say to myself, I should be grateful to the people of Bosomtwe for giving me this opportunity. For the president, I'm always grateful for giving me the opportunity. But I always say to myself that I have to do whatever it takes to make sure that I'm giving back to the people of Bosomtwe. I want to make sure Bosomtwe become one of the greatest districts in the country, and also to ensure that the people of Bosomtwe will never regret electing me as their Member of Parliament.
Dr. Yaw Osei Adutwum, thank you very much
for
appearing on Face to Face. I hope you enjoyed this episode, very educational, I must say, episode of Face to Face. My name is Godfred Akoto Boafo. Have a good day.